Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're doing something a little different. We are charting one citizen's attempt to navigate the Federal Tort Claims Act, the FTCA.
Right.
For anyone listening, the FTCA is critical because, well, it's the only way you, as a private citizen, can sue the federal government or its agencies like the U.S. Postal Service. It's supposed to be the mechanism for justice, but based on the source material we have, these detailed letters from one claimant, Mark Dempsey, it seems like the process itself might be the biggest hurdle.
Yeah, this case is really important because it forces us to dig into that structural tension, the tension at the heart of government claims.
Okay.
We're looking at correspondence from late 2025, and this claimant is alleging some serious things. Ethical failures, a lack of transparency, maybe even systemic efforts to deny legitimate compensation.
Wow.
It really highlights that conflict. The government agency, it has a duty to citizens, right?
Right.
But its legal team also has this immediate financial goal: protect the public purse, protect the pocketbook.
Okay, let's unpack the timeline then, because the delays seem pretty central here.
They are?
Our claimant, Mark Dempsey, author, journalist, was injured December 26, 2024. A malfunctioning sliding door at a post office crushed their finger.
Ouch. Yeah. And the claim was filed pretty quickly after that, January 2025.
Right, but then nothing.
That's the start. And then, 7 months of just silence. The claimant waited until August 2025 for any decision.
7 months.
And here's a key detail from the letters. During that entire time, not one single person from the USPS offices involved Jacksonville or St. Louis reached out. No one asked the claimant a single question about the injury, the medicals, the facts, nothing.
It's striking. 7 months, no questions. And when the decision finally comes?
August 2025. It's a denial. Comes via a form letter.
A form letter. Okay.
And the reason given for the denial, that's where the claimant's frustration really starts to, boil over.
What was the reason?
The attorney apparently relied only on the post office's own internal statement. A statement saying the door had been repaired way back in October.
The previous October, before the injury.
Exactly. And based just on that, the attorney concluded, well, no negligence.
But wait, the injury was in December?
Precisely. That's the core tension. The claimant immediately shot back, saying that statement was patently false. A cover-up, they called it.
Because if the door was fine in October?
How could two different people get injured by the same door malfunction in the weeks after that supposed repair? Including the claimant. It doesn't add up.
Okay, so the claimant isn't just arguing the facts of the injury, but the whole process behind the denial.
Absolutely. The form letter mentioned an investigation had happened.
An investigation?
Yeah, but the claimant contests this pretty fiercely. They argue, look, if you just read this statement from the party responsible saying we're fine, how is that possibly an investigation?
It sounds more like just accepting their side of the story.
That's the point. The claimant argues a real investigation needs, quote, effort, inquiry, and impartiality. Just reading a self-serving statement isn't investigating, it's just accepting an internal defense.
Yeah.
It kind of flips the whole idea of an objective review on its head.
Okay, so this context, it leads us to the appeal for reconsideration. And here the claimant seems to shift focus, maybe less on the injury itself and more on the integrity of the whole process. They sent this request laid out in the August 26, 2025 letter.
And the facts presented there, they seem pretty damning. The claimant stated the door had been malfunctioning for weeks before the injury.
Weeks.
And crucially, the supervisor at that branch, identified as Chris, he apparently knew all about it.
Knew about the malfunctioning door.
Fully aware.
Yeah.
The claimant says not only did they approach Chris right after the injury, but they also learned that another woman had been injured by the exact same door just the week before. And she actually showed Supervisor Chris her identical injury.
Okay, that changes things significantly. That's explicit notice of a hazard.
It puts the post office directly on notice, yes. An ongoing, known public hazard. And there's more confirmation.
What else?
After the claimant's injury, the claimant and Supervisor Chris apparently went up to the door together multiple times. And it repeatedly failed to open or work properly right in front of both of them.
So direct evidence of malfunction after the injury witnessed by the supervisor.
Correct. So you've got prior knowledge, ongoing malfunction.
Yeah.
Yet the denial was based on this claim the door was fixed months before.
It seems hard to reconcile.
And this is where the transparency issue really bites. The claimant noted the post office later tried to say the door was cordoned off just for testing.
Okay.
But the claimant included a photo taken January 6th showing the door blocked off for days.
Days, not just a quick test.
Right. The argument is you don't block a public entrance for days for routine testing. You do it for public safety because it's defective.
That makes sense.
This really highlights the disadvantage you face filing an FTCA claim. The source points out when your claim gets denied, you have to produce new evidence for reconsideration.
Okay, standard enough.
But you're given zero transparency on the reasons for the denial, the specific legal points, the factual findings they relied on. Nothing.
So you're just guessing what you need to disprove.
Exactly. You're forced to, as the claimant put it, shoot in the dark. You're trying to dismantle some internal defense you haven't even seen.
Well, the government attorney who denied it
Operates behind a shield. You can't question them. It becomes this really asymmetric legal fight. The rules favor the defendant, even when the defendant is the government supposed to be providing justice.
So the procedural roadblocks are one thing, but then the story takes another turn, doesn't it? Towards alleged ethical issues.
Yes, this is where it shifts dramatically. The focus moves to alleged misconduct right at the top of the USPS Torts Division.
This comes out in the October 14th, 2025 letter.
That's the one. It follows an internal referral from the Postmaster General, Steiner. So the claimant is now dealing directly with the Chief Counsel of Torts, a Miss Wendy Wiedemann-Hudson.
Okay, top lawyer for torts.
Right. And the claimant expresses deep distrust almost immediately. Mrs. Wiedemann-Hudson apparently told the claimant she needed to get some undisclosed item from the Lakeland post office to finalize the claim.
Undisclosed. Again with the secrecy.
That was the claimant's reaction exactly. This lack of disclosure, quote, did not inspire confidence. It felt deliberate, like they were hiding what information they were gathering.
And this distrust, it gets worse.
Oh, yeah. It gets cemented by what the claimant calls the Swiss incident.
The Swiss incident. Okay, I'm intrigued.
So the claimant's waiting, again, over a month for an update. On September 4th, Ms. Wiedemann-Hudson emails saying she'll be out of pocket and back the week of September 22nd.
Standard out-of-office notice.
Seems like it. But when the claimant calls during that week, she was supposed to return.
But she's not back.
A colleague answers. Says they don't know when the chief counsel will return. And apparently, the colleague expressed concern about her medical condition.
Oh, okay, maybe she was ill.
That's what you'd think. But then, when the chief counsel finally calls the claimant back on October 8th,
What does she say?
she says she was in Switzerland.
Switzerland. Not dealing with a medical condition.
Apparently not. The claimant, maybe a bit pointedly, asks about Swiss chocolate.
Huh.
And she replies it was fantastic and adds she's just catching up.
So the medical condition story from the colleague doesn't match the Switzerland story from the chief counsel.
Not at all. And this isn't just a funny story about chocolate, right? For the claimant, this is a moment where credibility just evaporated.
Why? Because of the discrepancy.
Yes. They found the Switzerland explanation impossible to square with the colleague's concern about a medical condition, plus the fact calls were being forwarded somewhere. The claimant flat out asserts in the letter that the chief counsel fabricated a story.
Directly accusing her of lying.
Directly. Stating her professional credibility dropped to zero.
That's a huge accusation. The implication being.
If the chief counsel is willing to mislead about where she was for weeks, maybe just to cover delays, what else might she be willing to obscure? About the actual handling of the claim, the evidence, the reasoning.
It suggests a potential pattern of deception, or at least a lack of candor in a professional setting where honesty should be paramount.
That's exactly the claimant's argument. They're saying this lack of integrity, it perhaps starts in the top and filters down.
Which leads us to the big picture critique, right? The letters to the top leadership.
Exactly. The letters to Postmaster General David Steiner and the chair of the Board of Governors, McReynolds. This is where the claimant lays out the systemic argument.
And what's the core argument there?
That the USPS attorneys, they're not acting like objective, impartial reviewers seeking justice.
And instead?
Instead, they're acting like aggressive adversaries, whose main goal is simply to avoid paying out on claims, not to correct the wrongs, as the claimant puts it.
Okay, connect that to the money aspect you mentioned earlier.
Right. If you think about the finances of a huge agency like USPS, the claimant asserts it's actually economically rational for them to operate this way. It's, and I quote, cheaper to pay a team of lawyers to deny claims rather than to honor them.
Cheaper to fight than to pay, even if the claim is valid.
That's the assertion. This structure incentivizes denial. It potentially saves the USPS thousands, if not millions of dollars every year. by systematically delaying, obscuring information, making it difficult, and ultimately, the claimant argues, cheating legitimate claimants out of compensation.
So the legal department effectively becomes a cost-saving center.
Yes, their success isn't measured by fairness or justice delivered, potentially, but by how much money they save the agency by reducing payouts, regardless of the merits of the actual claims.
That's a deeply cynical view of the process.
It is, but it highlights a potential profound conflict of interest right inside the FTCA review process.
The conflict being?
The moment the government's own lawyers prioritize saving money over ensuring fairness and accountability, the whole system breaks down.
The system designed to hold the government accountable.
Exactly. It collapses into just an adversarial fight over money where the government holds most of the cards. This is what the claimant says is happening. Denial, obfuscation, concealment dominate the process.
And the claimant's plea to leadership?
Was essentially a demand for reform, a demand for integrity. They urged leadership to make sure the core virtues, credibility, decency, competence, honor become the actual standard for the attorneys handling these claims for the public.
Because anything less betrays public trust.
Fundamentally.
So, looking back over this whole narrative, we start with a clear injury from alleged negligence.
A known hazard.
Then 7 months of silence, followed by a denial based on disputed facts.
A denial claiming an investigation that maybe wasn't one.
Then an appeal where the claimant has to fight against secret arguments.
That whole shooting in the dark problem.
Culminating in this direct accusation of fabrication, of dishonesty, at the highest level of the Torts Division.
The Swiss chocolate incident.
Yeah. It seems the fight for the citizen isn't just about getting compensation for a crushed finger. It's become a much bigger fight about basic accountability.
It really has. All those procedural details we talked about, the form letter denial, the demand for new evidence without disclosure, even the alleged lie about Switzerland. They are just anecdotes. They paint a picture of a potential systemic culture that defaults to obstruction, maybe.
And if the government's own lawyers are seen as dishonest or just financially motivated to deny justice?
The whole promise of the FTCA, the promise of public accountability, it feels pretty hollow. It's rendered kind of meaningless for the average person.
The claimant made that direct plea, hire lawyers to correct the wrongs.
Right. A call for a shift in mindset.
But here's the provocative thought maybe to leave listeners with. If an agency's legal team is structurally incentivized to act as a financial shield, aiming to save millions by denying claims, how do you actually fix that?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
What concrete steps could Congress or the agency leaders themselves take to break that financial incentive model, to truly ensure fairness for citizens, rather than just protecting the budget?
It's a fundamental tension, the public purse versus public trust, and how agencies navigate that, especially when their actions harm citizens. That's something we absolutely need to keep watching.